Welcome back, folks, to another episode of LandO's Logic. We have just been hitting the grind recently, my friends. Well, we've got roster mania to talk on. We have a lot of rosters that we haven't really had a whole lot of time to focus on. It's just kind of like we go from one roster to the next. There's no real time to kind of focus in on the details, if you will, about each and every individual team, how the roster formations work, and that is exactly what LandO's Logic is here for, right? I mean, I obviously have a number of different shows. You can feel free to check out Off the Break, my show with NVTV. I'll have links in the description to that, as well as the episode that I did talking on the new Chicago Huntsmen team. But today, I want to focus primarily on the Huntsman's edition of Dashy and how he and I believe Envoy have the potential to be the next big duo. Now hear me out here. I know that it's early. Again, the roster is only like a day and a half old. But I want to talk on what I feel that this team has the ability to be. Like how they have I'll say, what I feel like they could be in comparison to some of the other greatest duos that we've seen in COD history. Now, I want to be careful with this because I was under the impression, and I guess a lot of this kind of gets spoiled by 5v5 heading into 4v4, but I was under the impression that a few different teams I thought really could have some lasting impressions. And I think based on a number of different factors, and I guess this could even change up next year with possible franchising increases and expanding the league. But it's fair to say duos are hard to form in COD, right? I mean, they're hard to kind of last because oftentimes we see so many roster moves. With franchising, that will eventually level out. But it is hard for teams, or at least players, to stick together for a long time, right? And when we talk about some of the greatest duos in COD history, we have guys like Clayster and Crimsix, right? Have won, a recent world championship with each other. You get guys like Zoom and Attach, Simp and Abizi, Crimsix and Karma, Aches and Teep, Scump and Formal. I think that this duo of Dashy and Envoy here for the Chicago Huntsmen, I think they have the ability to join that list, right? Because I think you have two incredibly talented young players who run different roles, but can equally be impactful, right? Because when you talk about two of these guys who have obviously much different backgrounds, who are kind of around the same age, Envoy, one of the smartest and best young SMGs that we have in the entire game. Someone in Dashy doesn't have the greatest season in Modern Warfare, but it is not doubted in any way. One of the most skilled flex/AR players in the entire CDL. Now, I want to kind of go back on this because I want to talk about Dashy and Envoy specifically, because the big dig on Dashy last season was his work ethic, right? Why? Because he wanted to be here on the Huntsmen, right? To start off the season. Kenny talked on it. We talked on it in the last LandO's Logic about the Chicago Huntsmen and Dashy coming to this team, which you can obviously watch. His big thing was that Optic Cool would rather be on Chicago, and the Optic players knew about that, right? And my thing, and the terminology that I used, was that he didn't buy into the Optic system, right? They got off on the wrong foot. He didn't buy into the slasher system. He clearly wanted to be over in the Chicago camp. And like I said, Optic knew that. So by having that be the case, you instantly start off on the wrong foot. You instantly start off in a position that isn't necessarily a positive one, because you already know that one of your, if not your biggest star player, would rather be in a different team. And he's made that vocal to the players that are on the roster alongside with them. And it's fair to say, kind of throughout the season, in terms of just the way that he approached the game, according to Kenny, the way that he kind of, in some certain ways, kind of slacked off toward the end of the season. There were rumors about how he didn't show up for practice, how at times he would be late, didn't really want to call out. It was clear, and I'm not defending this, by the way, but it was clear he didn't really want to be on this team. And I don't think that the personality types that Dashy and a few of the other members here on Optic Slasher specifically had, they don't complement one another. So it's like, if you start off on the wrong foot, let's say this, you're in a relationship with somebody. The way that the relationship starts off instantly on the wrong foot, and the way that you normally mend that is by having something in common. Well, that didn't happen for them, right? They didn't really have that moment where they can kind of get back to each other and start to kind of figure things out. You kind of have two strikes off the start. And that's kind of the way that this team gets out of the gates. And that is the reason why I believe that we saw such a slow start from them. And again, Optic, they had some amazing moments, right? We talked on how they could be a top team. There were a few moments where I was like, okay, this is the roster that we have been waiting on. And then one series goes by and they absolutely lose full, as we'll call it, right? And so I feel like when we talk about the Chicago Huntsmen, this team is more relaxed, and I think that they have the ability to hold him accountable to a point that I think really was going to help them. And I think that for Dashy, his perspective, right, I hope that the dramatic change from Black Ops 4 here into Modern Warfare has kind of opened him up to the idea that he needs to maximize this opportunity, right? Because he's getting what he wants. He's where he wants to be, with the owner he wants, with the player he wants, with the fans he wants. And I guarantee that they are going to look at him as the number one option. And not many players could take that title, right? But he will be that guy in terms of the slaying department that the Huntsmen are going to rely on. And that's a big role for him to step into. So I think realizing all of those things are going to help him, especially translating from the last year that he had coming into this one here with the Chicago Huntsmen. So again, there are worries that I have, right? And a lot of people have brought it up in the comments that they worry about his work ethic coming into this team. And while I do as well, I think the primary concern with the team that Optic had, and it's not necessarily anything that Optic did. I'm not saying that, oh, Optic could have done this better. No, I don't think that's really the case. I think that they were in an awkward situation that didn't get helped because of the players that just didn't mesh well with one another and obviously got off on the wrong foot with each other. And I think Dashy now coming to the Huntsmen on a team that he likes, it is going to be very beneficial for the team, and I do think that we see him kind of return back to the Black Ops form in the early stages where he looked like the best player in the entire game. I think we do see him kind of return back to that. Now, one area that's really going to help out Dashy is the young SMG that Chicago Huntsmen have tested after their first season with him. Envoy, right? Envoy's voice is going to, that's kind of weird, right? Envoy's voice. His voice is going to be something that Dashy hears very often, right? What really impressed me from Envoy throughout this year was the fact that he goes, right, in terms of Black Ops 4, he qualifies for the team called like Midnight, right? Obviously, there's a few different teams, joins Genji at the start and the end of the season, literally goes from 1 year of playing, professional COD. After, of course, he played back in Advanced Warfare on a team called Justice. No one really remembers it, but he was essentially a high-level player, a semi-pro/pro, but he takes off. He obviously has this major gap in the midst of turning the age of 18, comes back, plays Black Ops 4, technically plays the end of the last title, but we're being really specific here. Pretty much plays out his first competitive year, returning back to the real scene, and then instantly gets the opportunity to join the biggest franchise, right? You have to remember this. From Envoy's perspective, he is joining the next wave, the next endeavor after Optic, right? Scump, Hex, the entire brand, it goes over to a new place of which T2P is back, right? You have Arcity, you have Gunless, you have these major personalities regarded as some of the best, if not the best players in the world. And there you are after your first season now being on this team. And what does he do? He becomes a wonderful leader, a great in-game person, and an MVP candidate in the process, right? For the Chicago Huntsmen team. I didn't expect him to be at this level, but he did. And it was incredibly impressive, right? He proved his worth in such a short period of time. And that is not easy for anybody to do, especially someone like him. So you kind of have these two contrasting parties, right? Dashy's perspective now here with Envoy. And they kind of, at least from an outward perspective, look totally different. And I think that they have the ability to work well with one another because I think that they can be what the other person needs, right? I think Envoy can be someone that keeps Dashy accountable. I think Dashy can be the slayer that Envoy needs around him often, right? Their talent in Search and Destroy, it's going to be undeniable. The talent overall in this team, it's undeniable. Right, yet you're learning from T2P, Formal with the AR, Scump with the SMG, Dashy with the AR, Envoy with the SMG, right? The talent, it's undeniable when it comes down to this roster. And the one thing that's going to be interesting for me is the way that those two are going to mesh with each other throughout a lot of this year. Because now that we go to 4v4, the spotlight kind of individualizes itself more often. You can kind of focus on one player more often than you could previously. And I think the major spotlight for the Chicago Huntsmen is going to be on Dashy, and it's going to be on Envoy. You know what they're going to provide you. At least you do with Envoy, right? But Dashy is going to be the major question. And again, I think having a young leader like Envoy, somebody who is great in the comms and clearly somebody that can, pretty much instruct the biggest names in COD history, and someone like Scump formerly did it last year, he could do the same thing with this team this year. And that's so impressive to me. And I think that he has the ability to kind of turn around Dashy's current labels, which are he's not dedicated, he's not willing to practice. And again, I think that's more of a relaxed personality type that he has, which kind of matches the way the Chicago Huntsmen works. Not that they're lazy, but they're not running the same camp that the Optic Gaming roster was, right? And I know it's kind of confusing to say that, but I'm talking about the Optic Gaming from, Modern Warfare, Slashers Optic, right? So again, I think this team is going to work much better for him. I think that Dash is going to be in a place that he feels comfortable with. And I think, again, that these two players together have the ability to form the next big duo. Now, again, it's very hard to say that because we're probably not going to know whether or not where this kind of duo stands until like 3 or 4 years from now. But I think they have the potential to be that. And most importantly, they have the spotlight. Right? You're on the team. You have the platform to do it, right? Envoy gained a massive following throughout the season. When Dashy joined Optic back in Black Ops 4, massive following, right? Bruce, it's literally his mantra now. That's the way that they announced him, was through the Batman, kind of aura about it. That was the whole reason. That's how the announcement came about. They are forming brands, and I think that if they have the ability to combine together, I'm not saying they're going to take over T2P and then be their own thing, but I think they have the ability to be that duo who plays well off one another. They play enough of a different role to where it's never really going to be a clash. And I think in terms of the way that they play, they both can help each other in a number of different ways. Because again, they are going to be interactive. They're going to be constantly setting each other up throughout the map, and honestly, kind of in a number of different areas. Because again, you have someone in Envoy who's objective-minded first, Dashy, Slayer-minded first. They just kind of work to me in a number of different ways. And I think being alongside another duo like T2P, it really has the ability to help them for the future. So are Dashy and Envoy the next big duo for the future? I think they have the ability to do so. I think they have the right capability. I think they are the right age in order to do it. They're not super old. You're not worried about one of them retiring anytime soon. They're young. They're both incredibly talented. And I think that if this team can be a success, which I believe that it will, if this team can continue to be a successful one, I don't see why either of them would want to lose the other, because when you talk about what they provide to the table, they are one of the best at doing it, if not the best in terms of their specific role. And I don't see why each other would want to lose that. Obviously, we talk about franchising, a number of different things could occur, but I think given the right kind of storyline, given the right plan of attack, I think that Dashy and Envoy could very well be a very scary duo for the future, and very well could be regarded as one of the best of all time if they continue to play alongside one another.